Hello and welcome to another lesson for web design on video. In this lesson we're going to take a look at some more HTML tags. These are elements which are introduced in your textbook but we perhaps did not discuss or show very much in the class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create a new document in Komodo Edit, and as you can guess I'm going to go from the beginning and HTML, get rid of that tab, go to the HTML tag with the language equals English. Let's see, then go to the head, and then the title, and this will be about more HTML, tags. Okay, now also in the head I'm going to put a meta tag here, and that'll be the char set equals UTF-8. That should be a standard thing for you now. Remember, it's a void element, so there's no end tag. And normally we might also include a style section, but until we have to use that, I think I'm going to skip that for right now. All right, so here we have our basic page. I'm going to save this inside of our project folder, and I'm going to call it just more.html. Anything is fine. You should be doing this as well, so you can try these out on your own computer. And then let me go ahead and open this up and put that into the browser. So I'm opening up the page in the browser. It's blank except for the title and the tag. And so let's go back and put some stuff in here. Now the first tag I'd like to show you is the Blockquote tag, but to show you that I should make a couple of paragraphs. So here is a paragraph. There we go. And I'm going to just copy and paste a whole bunch of times. Now this is where the text wrapping comes in handy. If you did not set your text wrapping at home, you should probably do that. I showed how to do that in the class. I'm going to copy and paste this paragraph twice, so now we have two paragraphs. And if I save it and reload it, here's what it looks like in the browser. Now the reason I did that is because I want to compare a block quote with the normal paragraph. So here I'm going to put a block quote. And this is a special indented block element. Really, it's just the same as the p tag, except it has an indent of 0.5 inches. So I'm going to save that, and when we take a look at that, we'll see that it's right here. Now, very oftentimes, the block quote will have extra styles added. One thing that might be added is something like the italics, because quotes are often in italics. So if I go here and if I use block quote and create a style for that, and then I say font style is italic. Don't forget the colon and the semicolon there. Then you'll see that the block quote becomes italic. So this is a reason, by the way, to use the CSS font style italic instead of the EM tag. If it's the EM tag, you have to do it for each block quote. But if you use the font style italic in CSS, in the style, then you can set it to appear every time you use a block quote. So that looks a little bit more like a quote. It's not necessary, but it's one thing that often happens. Another thing is to give it a border. I'm going to give it a border of 1 pixel, solid, and black. Now let me make it gray, actually, a little bit more muted. Now, normally I would do more than this because if you just put the border on, there's not going to be much space inside of that block quote. Let me see if I can show you. You see, it looks kind of strange. It looks like the lines are too close to the text. So this is where we would use a very, very useful CSS idea, and that is padding. If you put, let's say, 15 pixels of padding, and that'll appear on the top, right, bottom, and left of inside the block quote. Then if we reload, you can see it looks a lot more reasonable. So these are things that are often done. Sometimes more styling is done than that, but you can get the idea that that the block quote is used to give a quote from some other location, and that's actually a semantic quality of the block quote. The block quote should only be used if you are quoting somebody. You should not use the block quote just to indent. If you're going to indent, then you can use the margin left or something else. But using the block quote just for indenting is not a good idea, because block quotes are supposed to be quoting text from some other source. All right, so that's the block quote. Now let's take a look at a new tag, and we'll put it right here after our last paragraph. And this will be the HR tag. This is called a horizontal rule, and it's very simple. It's a void element. It has no end tag, and what it does is that it just puts a horizontal line across your page. So if we go back to the browser and we reload, you'll see that we now have a horizontal line. One thing I would ask you to note is that if we zoom in really, really closely, you'll notice that this horizontal line is actually 4 pixels thick. It's got a kind of a 3D shading going on here. And that'll make it a little bit difficult if you want to give it any special styling. But let's see what we can do in terms of style. So inside here, let's add a style tag. And let's make the width equal to, let's say, 60%. So that means that it'll be only 60% of the width of the space it has. And if we save this, you'll notice that when we reload, it is centered in the page. That is the default setting for the alignment. And in order to change the alignment, we actually have to go back and put in an HTML attribute. And that would be align. And we're going to say align equals left. Now notice that when I typed it, that Komodo Edit did not try to help me. But the fact is, it's kind of difficult to align this one using CSS. It's much easier just to use the align attribute. And sure enough, when we go back and reload, it's on the left. You can put it on the right just the same way. I'd like it in the center though, so I'm going to keep it in the center. I'm just going to get rid of the align. But there are other things that you can do with it too. For example, you can control its height. So if I say that the height is 20 pixels and we go back, you'll notice that it'll first of all go back to the center, and it'll also get a lot bigger. You'll notice that it's got that 3D shading, and you can change other things about it as well. For example, we can say border is, let's say, 1 pixel, and blue, and solid. Okay, and I'm going to go back out and reload, and now you'll see that we've got a solid 1 pixel blue border, and the shaded border has kind of disappeared. We can give it a background color, and let's give that a background color of, just so it's visible, let's make it yellow. That'll be a strange color combination, but it'll be something that's easy for you to see. So go here and reload, and here you can see that we've got a yellow background. So you can basically, use this to make a rectangle, but it's most often used when it's not so high. You don't want it to be that high. So let's say if I set it to a 2 pixel height and we reload, you'll see now that there are 2 pixels of background color in there. Well, what if we don't want a background color? What if we just want the line by itself? Well, you can set the height, in that case, to 0 pixels. This height does not include the border. So let's go and see what that looks like. And here we can see we have now a thick, 2 pixel thick blue line here. So that's nice if you want 2 pixels, but what if you want only 1 pixel? What if you want a very thin line? Well, the answer is simple. You can just change the border to a border top. Notice that you can set it to border top, border bottom, so forth and so on. This border top means that only the top will have a border. So I'm going to reload it, and we're going to take a look, and there you go. See, that looks a lot more thin. But one thing you'll notice, and here's where that 3D shading comes in, is that we've still got that bottom border, except now it's just a light shade. That's why we need to use the top, because if we had the blue on the bottom, the top would be more of a dark gray. There are other things you can do. Instead of having solid, you can, for example, have it be dashed. And if we do dash, then it looks kind of like that. Notice that the background color comes through. So if you don't want that background color there, you should get rid of it. We can also have it dotted, dotted, and we can see what that looks like. And here we go with the dotted line. Notice there's no yellow anymore. And there are a lot of other things that you can do with it as well. But those are the basics about the HR, or horizontal rule tag. All right, so what I'd like to do next is show you a lot of semantic tags. These are things that were introduced in Chapter 2. I told you not to pay too much attention to them in class. I would like to go over them and show them to you, however. So let's create a paragraph here first. And the first one I'd like to show you is for definition, or DFN. So here I might say that early Americans believed in manifest destiny. Excuse me, if I can spell here. Now I'm going to hit the Enter key so I can go to, not so I can have a break in the text, but because I'm zoomed in here and I want you to see everything that I'm typing all at one time. I don't have to put that enter into there. Early Americans believed in manifest destiny, an idea that the United States would naturally grow across the continent. So what I'm doing here in this text is I'm introducing a term, manifest destiny. But if I want that term to show up as a definition, I would use the DFN tag. Now I'm going to close it here. We get the N tag there. So I'm going to put that at the end of manifest destiny. So now you can see it says DFN. Well, let's take a look at what that looks like in paragraph form. And here you can see that it comes out as italic. So this is kind of like actually the bold text that you'll find in your textbooks when a new term is introduced. Well, what if you want it to be bold instead of italic? Well, you can go up here and you can add the style for, you can add the style for DFN, and you could say, for example, font weight would be bold, but you still have it as an italic. You would just be making it bold and italic. Well, for that, you can say font style, and you can just say normal, and that will take away the italic style from the DFN. So if I save that and come back, then you can see that now it's simply bold. Well, you might just ask, why are we not using the EM or the I or the strong or the B? And the reason is because this is semantic. This is something that will be recognized by special programs and by search engines as being the definition of a term. So that's why you'd want to use it. Not just for its appearance, for its styling, because you can change the styling very, very easily with CSS, but really because it is has semantic meaning to it. I would add the note that the DFN tag is only used the first time a term is defined. If you use this term again at other times without the definition, then you would not use the DFN tag. All right, so let's take a look at something else. Let's now take a look at marking. Let's say that you want to have some text which is important and you want to mark it as you would with a highlighter pen. So I would like to do that to this definition right here. So I'm going to create the mark tag. Here we go. And I'm going to take the end and put it down here. And so now I've put the mark tag around the words, the United States would naturally grow across a continent. So if we save that and we go up here, you can see that we now get a yellow highlight for that text. So that again has semantic meaning. It means that this text is of special importance or significance to the reader. So this could also be treated differently by an application which is designed to use semantic tags to function better. Another tag I'd like to show you is abbreviation. Now we're going to create a paragraph here, and we're going to use a couple of abbreviations here. I'm going to say the organization, SETI, is always looking for ET. All right, so here I have two abbreviations, and I'm going to mark this first one by saying abbr. There we go. Move the end tag to after SETI. Now here's the interesting thing, is that when I save it and we look at it in the browser, you'll notice that there's no styling here. It looks exactly the same as it would have if we used no tag at all. So in terms of what it looks like, this gives absolutely no real visual difference. But there is one thing we can do, and this is often used. We can add an attribute called title. Now keep in mind this is an attribute, not a tag. The title tag is used in the head to give a title to the whole page. This is an attribute, which is used in various tags to give a little pop-up mark. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to call this the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And I know I'm running off the page there. Sorry about that. So there we go. So I gave this this name, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, to the title attribute. So if I save this and now we reload that page, again it looks the same as it always has. But now if you move your cursor over that word, you can see that a little pop-up, it's called a tooltip usually, appears and shows you what that abbreviation stands for. Normally you'd use this only the first time you introduce a new abbreviation, but you can use it every time if you want to, I suppose. Here I'm going to create the same thing again. I'm going to abbr and put the end tag over here. There we go. And this time I'm going to put the title extraterrestrial. And actually it's just the same as this one right here. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to copy and paste as title equals and then extraterrestrial. There we go. So now if I save that and view it, again, if I go over SETI, I get search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and ET is just extraterrestrial. Okay, so let's look at another tag here. This will be a citation tag. So let's create a paragraph. And let's say that you are going to use information that you got perhaps from my blog. So you would say that according to Luis Poza, the iPhone 6 will be big. That's not exactly the best example of a citation, but this will do for right now. So what I'd like to do then is say, where did I get this information? Now this is not your MLA essay. There are no strict rules about how you give a citation. There's various ways you could do this. One way would be just to link to the page that you got this information from. That's probably the most common. But a slightly more verbose way or specific way would be to use the cite tag right here. I'm going to move the end tag to the end of my name. And again, you'll see that this is not really just about styling. If we do this, you'll see that Luis Poza is in italics, but that might seem strange. You might even want to get rid of the italics. But this gives you a chance also to use the title attribute. And here you can say the source that you got it from. For example, you could say the blog from another dimension. Whoops, that's not spelled correctly. There we go. And let's see, I would probably have to not use quotes there. There we go. And then I might give the URL, http://blogd.com. And that's it for the title. Now, Note that I can't use styling within here. I can't make any of this bold. I can't use quotes because it needs the quotes to begin and end the title. This link will not be clickable. It'll just be something that you can view as a float over, as a tooltip. So if I go back over here and use my cursor, you can see that that information pops up just like that. I would probably not use the italics. I might just get rid of the italics and leave it as plain text, or I might set it as bold text. You can do what you decide. You might give it a special color. Maybe something that you're going to cite will be perhaps, I don't know, a deep purple color, or maybe aquamarine, whatever you decide. You can style that up here. Let me just give you an example. I'm going to cite, and I'm going to say font style will be normal. That'll get rid of the italics. And I'll say color maybe is dark blue, and we'll see if that works. And when I save it and then reload, you'll see that now it's a dark blue color and there's no italics. That might be a better way of doing it, but of course it's up to you. You can style it almost no matter what way that you want, whatever way you want. All right, now there are 3 more that I'm not going to demonstrate because I don't think you're going to be using them. And those would be code, keyboard, and, and variable, or var. These are when you're trying to show HTML code or PHP code or any other kind of scripting or markup or programming code. The code will show an example of that code itself. KBD is actually if you want to give the keyboard input that somebody's got to put in response to code. Or var, VAR, is to show a variable in code. And these usually use a monospace font as the only difference in styling. But these are not things that I think you're going to be using. So we will not require these in the class. And that's the end to the special tags that we saw used in Chapter 2 of the textbook. So if you have any further questions, then ask me by email, or you can look it up in the textbook, or maybe do some Googling. And that's it for this lesson.